Up here on the north end of Big Oak Flat. This is one of the descendants of Lewis Carter's apple orchard. I'm sure he didn't plant it right here on this little slough. So either a bear deposited it there or some seeds made its way down to this area right here. But it's a descendant. The old Carter place was 200 yards behind me. And this is the north edge of the flat, because right across this slough, the rolling mountains begin. And off to the right here, to the east, is the old Serby log cabin. I'll continue to show you some of the leftover remnants of Carter Homestead. Okay, we're here just below the Lewis Carter Homestead, which would have been up there on the flat. But you can see right here, he terraced the side of this hill. There's 1, 2, 3 right in front of me going towards that oak tree. 4, at least 4, maybe 5. And I believe this is probably where he planted his garden. Because over behind that oak tree, I'll show you, there's a spring. So I think he irrigated this. We'll see what the spring looks like. Okay, here we are at the spring. There's still good water. It's end of October. And it's coming down from those rocks, upper rocks right there, which is about even with that upper terrace. So I'm pretty sure he was able to tap that spring and come off of there and irrigate a garden across the side of this hill. So he could produce a little more food than the average bear. Good for him. Next we're heading over south here. I'll show you a pen, chicken pen or sheep pen or something like that. Hold on. There's a couple of old fence posts that Carter put in for his pen. Split oak. So let me tell you, that boy worked hard to make fence posts out of an oak tree. I can tell you, I've never done it, but I built a lot of fence and it ain't fun or easy. So there's should be some old fencing down here. I'm gonna pause you. Here we go. We're coming up to some of it now. Right here. Right here. All that's left. You can see he slid the boards in there, so it was to keep something smaller than cows and sheep and what have you in. But it went from that tree, some old posts, down to that tree. And you know, these aren't big trees, so they're older than snot. They're just stunted growth. And it may have gone on down there. Those other 2 posts we saw were right over there. You can see one sticking out behind that oak tree up there on the other side of that rock. So it would have come down the hill right about there to a corner. And it would have come right up here like so to a corner. This could have been where he kept the baby calves to feed, or maybe he had hogs in here. I don't think so. Hogs, that fence wouldn't have held hogs. But maybe sheep, goats, something like that. I have no idea. He didn't leave any history behind. Well, I'll show you some more Carter stuff if I can find it here. Okay, we're just up from the pin we saw right down there beyond that rock pile. And this, see that tin can laying there, what's left of it? This is the old LP Carter dump. All the old homesteaders dumped all their waste, which is basically just glass and tin, in a rock pile somewhere near their homestead. So I think I was the first one to find this back in early 1970s, and I started digging. I dug quite a few cans and bottles and things out of here, but there's years and years of dust and dirt on top of everything. And then my cousin, he came up here after me 15 years later, and he started digging stuff out of here. A little piece of a crock pottery bowl or something. So it's been scrounged through. I was digging through this until I saw my first scorpion down there in the bottom of that pit, and that pretty much weaned me of wanting any more antiquities. They just throw them in the cracks of these rocks for years and years and years and years. You hardly ever find anything that's glass that's still in one piece. But the homestead, right up here, flattens out. We'll head up there. The hearth is still left, and I'll show you that. So stay tuned. Okay, here's the flat where the Lewis Carter homestead was. Looking today much like it would have looked like in 1860 when he came up here. He's the first homesteader that's been recorded as filing up here. The rest of them may have squatted a little bit. And what do we got here? An animal of some sort. I hope that's a hog and not a deer. Yeah, it looks like a hog. Something got a hog, maybe a bear or a lion. But there's the big flat. This is a 2,000 acre flat or more. And Lewis was the first one in here. And then you got a few neighbors just slowly drifting in and filing for homesteads or buying land from the Southern Pacific Railroad. Here's one of his corner posts right here. Probably for a corral of some sort. Again, another split rail oak post. So when the cattle got it eaten down a little more than this, it's kind of easier to see the layout. You can kind of see rectangular settings of where the fences and the rails might have run. That's his hearth right over there where those rocks are. Fire hearth. And over here, this big pit. I don't know if this was an outhouse. Either the outhouse or a hand-dug well. I can't imagine somebody digging a hand-dug well on here. They would have had to go quite a few feet. So, I don't know what that was, but so his house would have been right here. And there's some old pictures of it, but it doesn't show it very well because that's copies of copies of copies. I'll put them on here so you get an idea, but you ain't going to get much information. There's some old broken pottery left over. Most of that came out of the hearth. The hearth was right here. And I imagine this was the north end of the homestead. That's where he built his fires back in the 1860s. Lewis Carter was the guy who got into an argument with Baptiste Miranda and ended up shooting him with his .45-70 rifle over here on Big Oak Flat, not that far in that direction. Killed him. Went to an inquest. Enough evidence to file charges. Went to court. Jury found him innocent. Self-defense. Had to pay his lawyers. Couldn't. You can see we don't make much money up here doing this kind of stuff. So had to sell the homestead here, which is a shame. I'm sure he loved it. And Nancy Swanson bought this homestead. Brought one of her sons out. Actually, both of her sons came out from Indiana or Illinois, someplace like that. And George Wallace Serby moved into this house right here. And he was only here 3 or 4 years when this house burned down in 1915. So they had some more land to the end of this flat, and they built a house out there and lived there for the duration. But this is pretty much the story of Carter. Carter moved off, and he died many, many years later over in Antelope Valley, which is down by Wood Lake, at a ripe old age. But that old boy, I couldn't find what the P in his middle name stood for, but one person referred to it as Pickin. Lewis Pickin Carter. That old boy's seen a lot in his lifetime, including this view right here, for many, 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 many days and many years. So you can't feel too sorry for him. He had this, but he built it all. The Serbys came in afterwards and just kind of took it over. They didn't do anything. So you got to give it to old Lewis. He was a Hard charger Homesteader.